Here are your gap and go trades for the week of September 30th through October 4th. I will go over price targets, have a gap recap from September 23rd through the 27th, and update the chart as well. Hi everyone, it's Dow on the Dow. First up is NEO. We ended the week at $6.52, up 12.8%. To the north side from where we are takes us to one level of resistance and a potential take profit area at $6.80. At 3 standard deviations, that is roughly $7. And finally, at 4 standard deviations and another potential take profit area, $7.22. To the south side, back at the middle of the trend and the baseline, roughly $6.39. Another level of support and a potential buy-in area, $5.97, $5.75, and roughly $5.54. Taking a look at the gaps. Out of the gate, we opened up a gap. We gapped to the downside, which means if we are lucky enough to fill, it will fill to the upside, and it actually did right there at roughly 528. So that's closed out. This gap, we gapped up, so I anticipate it to fill to the downside. I have no idea when it's going to happen, so I will just extend that out. And this gap also is still in play, as well as this gap. That will take us down to 580. This one will take us down to 567 and potentially down to $5.34. We are in an upward channel, however, on the 5-minute time frame. But on Monday, if we gap down or we wick down and then get bought back up again, we could definitely touch the beginning of this gap, which is roughly $5.99, these two gaps. And this gap to the upside is still in play. That will take us to 716, and then the gap after that at 791. But we are not quite up to this level yet, but on, I think it's Monday, no, it'll be Tuesday. If we continue to go up, we could touch this gap. But we are right here, and the middle of the trend is right there. So I will mark that out and turn that to yellow. I've marked out the middle of the trend for different weeks, and the previous week, beginning Monday, the 23rd, let me move this out of the way. We were here at the middle of the trend, and now we are here. And just from that level to this level is a 22% return for NEO. However, for the day, we were just up 12.8%. But obviously, if you had bought down here and then sold out up here, you would be in it even higher. So what I will do is, I could just delete that, but I'll just leave it. So let's go to the next one. CVS. First, your price targets. Those yellow lines are previous middle of the trend lines. I've been marking it out for the week. So first, we are at 61.38, up 4%. So one level will take us to 62.58, 63.28, and 64.01. And back to the middle of the trend, roughly 61.19, 59.79, 59.10, and 58.36. Let's just draw this middle of the trend while I'm here. And last week we were down here for the middle of the trend. Let's take a look at the gaps. So this gap has been in play since Friday the 20th, and we closed out on Wednesday, so congratulations on that move. So we gapped up, we gapped down, and then I anticipate it to fill on the way up, and it touched right there. So that is done. And then we had this gap that opened up. So that will take us down to roughly 58.17. And this one will take us to 59.08. And we are in an upward channel. However, we could just slam down, hit this support, and then run back up again. That's a potential play. And this gap, starting at 61.85, which I think we will hit on Monday if we continue to go up, but you never know. And so the previous week, wait, why do I have, oh, it's right here. You can't see it because of this gap. Oh, that is not the previous week. This was the previous week. So September 23rd was the previous week. And that is roughly a 5% return. And just for the day, we were up 4%. Okay, I will delete that just so that I don't have too many things going on. And the next one I'm going to go over is CVS. Excuse me, that was a CVS. Rivn is the next one. So first, your price targets. $11.93, $12.23, and roughly, move this, oops, down. That is $12.54. Back to the middle of the trend and the baseline, $11.33, $10.73, $10.42, and roughly $10.12. And obviously, if we flush to the south side, that will close out this gap, taking us down to $11.18. And this gap, which began on Wednesday, closed out on Friday. So that was a nice little run up. And obviously we didn't quite make it to this resistance level and started to fall back down. And we are in a downward channel on the 5. So I will anticipate this to close out on Monday if we continue this path. And, oh, I want to mark out this. So the middle of the trend, unfortunately, is now 11.07 to the south side. And the previous week, it was at 12.27, making lower lows. Okay, the next one is Tsla. I want to hurry up and get through these. $260.46 is where we ended, up 2.45%. Resistance, $261.82, $263.50, $265.23 to the south side. For Monday, $258.36, $255, $253.23, and $251.58. Looking left, note this gap to the upside means we closed to the south side, and we did. That took us down to 256.27 and closed that out. No new gaps besides that one. And, oh wait, to the south side, carried over is this gap. That will take us down to 239-ish. And this gap at 228.82, and unfortunately, this one as well. And the earnings report is coming up very soon. And, oh, let's take a look at this gap. So this gap closed out at 246.23. and it opened up on Wednesday, July 24th. This gap we flushed down, which means whenever it fills, I will anticipate it will fill to the upside, and it did. Right over here, but I need to clean this. Oh no, I did move it and extend it. So it touched right here. So that is no longer in play at 246.23. As you can see, so we hit here, we were grinding up along this line and then made our way up to resistance. What happens at resistance? People take their profits and they run, they lock in and they leave. And that's what happened. And then we attempted to go back up again for another resistance level and a fade out. Now you can turn on your VWAP, your Bollinger Band, whatever you like to use. And I like to play within -2 and 2 standard deviations. And that's being pretty conservative. The other outliers, if you're trying to wait and make more money, those are your other sell signals and then your other buy-in signals. Of course, we may never get to those levels, and then sometimes we easily rip through them. So that's Tsla. Again, I'm only tracking from this period to this period, and with Tsla, we are in an upward channel. The middle of the trend, let's just mark that out. The last week's middle of the trend was here, and now we are here. And that movement alone is just a return of roughly 6.44%. Sofi is next. The pink lines are my buy-in lines, and I still am holding on onto these shares that I picked up. All right. To the north side, resistance 809. 817 and roughly 825. 793 for support, another level of support. 777, that will take out that gap. 770, 762. And these are also my old buy-in lines. And that gap is still in play to roughly 747, 748. Note the bounce off of this line here turned into support, one of my buy lines. And those are my other buy lines, other gaps to the downside. Yeah, I still own a lot of Sofi. And to the upside, this gap is what I am tracking. That will take us to $8.57. What is this 810? I want to make sure. Is that my previous sell line? Yeah, that is an old sell line of mine. I changed it to a different green so I wouldn't mix up this green with that green. But you can see I've tracked this for a very long time. And this thing has whipped us all over the place. And now, very quickly, I just want to mark this out for myself. That is now our baseline also, the middle of the trend. If we bounce off that, if we go sideways, or we could just follow this line up as the middle of the trend. It could go either way. So note the sell-off here at resistance. Next one up is Boeing. One level of resistance, 158.28, 159.42, and 160.60. Baseline, which we're very close to, 155.95, 153.60, 152.44, 151.28 for your support line. As far as the gaps, this gap will take us down to roughly 152.31. And then the gap to the upside, that one closed. The next one I am looking at will take us to 169.50. Not in the channel, not in the zone, not even close. Just something to be aware of to the upside. And on the 5, we are in an upward channel. One last thing. That is the middle of the trend, and the previous week it was here. So we are making a little bit of higher highs. And then looking back though, look, the slam down. So this is the target, to stay up here. Tsly, 1429, 1435, and 1441. 1417, 1405, 1399, and roughly 1393 to the south side. Looking left, so we've got gaps to the south side. I need to turn this color red. That's roughly 13, 14. I will delete. And it's actually not. It's more like right there. Give or take a couple pennies. So this one is still in play. And if you move this over, the color, when you use the price label, oh, it did work. Well, that's good. Why did I take this so far low? To that level. Let's move this out of the way. Oh. That should be up here, actually, from how I like to mark things. Not down there. Let's delete that one. All right. This gap touched right here, so that is no longer in play. And this gap will take us to 1437. That is now the middle of the trend and the baseline where I mentioned, but we are in an upward channel, so hopefully we'll grind along this line. But if we go sideways, that's where I will anticipate the middle of the trend to be. And last week we were down here at 1345. And that is a return of 5.27%, even though we only went up 1% for the day on Friday. Next one up is Apple. First, for your targets, we're basically at the middle of the trend, 227.92-ish, 229.74, 230.62, and 231.53. 226.09, 225.26, 224.31. So we gapped up. I will anticipate it to fill to the south side whenever we get there, taking us down to 221.07, but we are in an upward channel. Note the bounce here at support, sell off at resistance, resistance, resistance. Okay, this gap opened up and then it also closed to the downside right there on Friday. And then this little one closed out as well. The last gap I'm tracking will take us to roughly 234.62, 61-ish. Excuse me. Let's mark out the middle the middle of the trend. I think my allergies are kicking in. The weather has turned and I'm spending more time outside, which means more allergies for me. So I did not mark out the middle of the trend from last week. So it ended right here. And remember, the calculations constantly change every whatever time frame that you are playing. So right now, though, it's at 225.55 for the previous week, and now we're at 226.09. 790. So that's nice. I should just mark it out even though the calculation did change, but that's okay. This is what I'm anticipating for the week here, upcoming week, and this is where we were the previous week. Oh wait, I did. Never mind. This is where we were. Let me delete that one. So we were here. Well, we are here for this upcoming week, and we were here the previous week. Look at that slam down. And that's where we fell. You can't see because of this white line, noting the beginning of the week. Look at that. So hopefully we will continue our march upward. It's Monday. Let me fix that. And then we've got this gap also. I shall extend out. But we are fortunately moving farther away from that gap. Next one up is Nike. So here are your targets. Let me move this over. So we've got roughly 90.34, 91.37, 91.86, and 92.40. 88.79 and roughly 88.30. Looking left, we've got this gap that is still in play, taking us down to roughly 81.06-ish. And this gap is still in play as well, taking us down to roughly 86.30. And then this gap taking us down to roughly 88.09. And I shall mark out the middle of the trend here. That lines up with a previous middle of the trend that I have marked for myself. And now that I've changed all the middle of the trends to yellow, I'll show you this on the daily so you can see what I mean. Look at how many weeks I've been tracking Nike just to get back to this one level at 122.40. So I will delete that now. So that is the middle of the trend on the daily. And while I'm here, I will just give you the next price target up. But on the daily, we are going down. But to the upside will take us to 97.01, and to the next downward side, 81.12, and then that will close out basically that gap. Now for the 5 minute, back to the 5. Okay, and for Intel, here are your price targets. We're looking at roughly 24.13, 24.65, 24.89, and roughly 25.14, 23.64, 23.39, 23.13 to the south side. You can see this gap opened up and then we closed to the downside, filling at roughly 23.96. Note the bounce at support, 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 support. This turns into resistance, and note the sell-off, and then we finally busted through. This is resistance and then the sell-off. As far as the gaps go, this one will take us to 29.04. And note all of the yellow lines, which are previous middle of the trend lines. that will also act as support and resistance. So this was last week, and then we are now here. And that is a return of roughly 16%, even though we're down for the day. And is that my last one? Yeah, Intel is my last one. So that is a look at my gap and go trades for the week of September 30th through October 4th. If you would like me to add a gap play onto this list or switch it out whenever one gap closes that I will no longer be tracking, I'm happy to include it on the gap and go trades. All right, have a great trading week.